On the 4th of March, the House of Keys will choose 4 people to become members of the Legislative Council. Prior to that vote, Agenda and Perspective will be speaking with all the candidates so that you can find out more about the people that hope to become national politicians. On Perspective today, we'll hear from retired engineer Andrew Jones. Andrew Jones joins me now in the studio.
Okay, well, my name's Andrew Jones, and I'm a retired Chief Marine Engineer from the Merchant Navy. I have 2 children, 1 grandson, and hobbies, classic cars, full-time granddad really, and obviously meeting and catching up with friends and socialising with them.
So you mentioned the Merchant Navy there. I mean, what more can you tell us about that? I mean, in terms of your experiences there, is that something you've done all your life pretty much?
Well, yes, I served a 4-year apprenticeship at the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company as a apprentice marine engineer, and I worked for the steam packet for 11 years, and then I decided to pursue a proper full-time seagoing career, and I joined, as it was then, Cunard Cruise Line as a junior 5th engineer, and I worked my way up through the ranks, passed all my exams, etc., and the promotion panels, and I finished up chief engineer in 2003, and since then I've worked on many different of our operating brands and some very famous ships.
So you've certainly seen the world then.
I've been around the world many times, yes, and worked with 50 plus nationalities on each ship and multi-disciplined workforces, yeah.
And I guess that will help in relation to what you're about to do. You're putting your name forward for LegCo. Experience outside of the Isle of Man is something you have.
Well, yes, it is, yeah, but it very much feels like coming full circle, because obviously, I've had a very interesting and challenging career, and I started in the Isle of Man, and I'm back here now, retired, and with 62 years of life experience and 45 years at the very top of my game in a very demanding industry. I have learned a lot, and I have a lot of experience. I'm highly skilled, highly qualified, and highly trained.
So why the Legislative Council? I mean, there's a Keys election coming up in just over a year's time. Why LegCo?
Well, I think my skill set, my age, my experiences are best suited for LegCo rather than being an MHK. I see being an MHK as more of a career, and to really make change and make change happen. And I'm used to working to a plan, sticking to a plan. Plans are fluid, they change. So, if I wanted to be an MHK, I'd have done it 25 years ago and had a 25-year run at it, hopefully. And if you have the right plan, the right policies, the right experiences, people will back you and continue to back you.
So then, what is your motivation, I suppose, for standing for LegCo? Presumably, it's not. I don't know. You tell me. Is it? Yeah. Why do you want to be?
Well, the Isle of Man's been very good to me. It's been very good to my family. Over the years, I was educated and trained here initially. I've had a very successful career, and I've learnt all these skills and attributes, and I wish to give back to the Isle of Man, the Isle of Man people, the Isle of Man way of life. I've always been an unofficial ambassador for the Isle of Man. I've always sung the praises of the Isle of Man when I've been around the world, when I've been meeting people. When you're meeting 1, 2, 3,000 people every week, it's surprising. Everybody knows something about the Isle of Man, whether it's DT races or the Manx Cat or kippers, or even certain individuals sometimes come up, do you know so-and-so? And so it's not so much about me, it's about what I can bring, to the table and to the people of the Isle of Man.
And I suppose then the next question would be in relation to the work of LegCo. I mean, what do you understand the role to be?
Well, I think it's very much a role of two halves. Obviously, legislation, and looking at the legislation that's placed before you, analysing it, scrutinising it, making sure it's fit for purpose, that it does what it says on the can, and at the end of the day that it'll work, and obviously coming up with suggestions, etc., to make it work better, and so that I can share my experiences and pool my ideas with the rest of the LegCo team to ensure that we get the best result for the Isle of Man.
And in relation to, I suppose, representing, who do you think you represent in Legislative Council?
Well, you represent the Manx people and the Manx way of life.
Which is a great answer, yes.
Yeah.
And how do you go about doing that? Because obviously the Keys retain that kind of direct involvement with the electorate. But what would you see as your responsibility to the Manx public in terms of looking at legislation and making sure it fits?
Well, I see myself very much as the guide dog and not the guard dog. I'm there to help and support legislation as it's placed before us, but a guide dog can still growl, it can still bark, and it can still bite, and it's my job to make sure that the views of Manx people, Manx way of life, and the reputation of the Isle of Man are upheld at all times.
And then in terms of bills, obviously you will relatively quickly, once you are assuming that you're elected to LegCo, you'll relatively quickly get your first bill to look at. How do you go about doing that? What are the things that the processes, I suppose, that you go through when you're looking at a bill?
Well, I'm very used to working in a legislative framework with rules, regulations, whether they're international rules and laws or company rules and regulations. So I'm very familiar with the reading, digesting, understanding, interpreting, and following rules and regulations. I've spent 45 years doing that. But I'm also used to changing them, amending them, and submitting proposals for change, etc. So I have a very good understanding of what the role is, and in delving into the detail. But some of these bills can be, 1, 2, 3, 400, 500 pages. So it's not a case of just reading them. You have to understand them as well.
And in terms of that understanding, what are you looking for? Because obviously there's going to be policy behind a bill, but there's, I guess, a whole range of other things that come out of that policy. What things are you looking at, perhaps to ensure that the bill does, and then perhaps also to check to make sure the bill doesn't do certain elements?
Well, it obviously has to be legal, it has to be sustainable, it has to be affordable. It has to be practicable. It has to be in the best interest of the people of the Isle of Man, and the Isle of Man's reputation. There's many aspects to it. Yeah.
And then in terms of your potential role, I mean, if you are elected, I'm pretty confident that within hours of your election, you will be being wooed by various ministers seeking your services in their department. Where do you stand on that? Are you eager to participate person, keen to get involved in departmental work, or do you take the view that actually you need to retain independence and sit outside of departments?
No, I think, as I said, I think it's a 50-50 split. I think committee work, working with departments, is a fundamental part of the role at the moment. And obviously I bring a wealth of experience across many subjects, and I'd be very happy to work in any department that would be happy to have me.
In relation then, as I suppose, your role in terms of the merchant shipping, obviously you were in a position there where you had, I guess, a degree of authority over your particular area. How do you go about wielding that authority? Because it can be quite a difficult thing for people to do, can't it?
Well, yes, I suppose it can. But you come up through the ranks, and you're highly trained, and it's an immense responsibility. I mean, some of the assets that I've been working on, they're £1 billion to manufacture, to build, and bring online. I'm used to dealing with multi-million-pound budgets. Multinational staff, multidisciplinary staff, round the clock, ensuring the ship, is efficient, and it operates environmentally correctly. It follows the rules and regulations, arrives on time, and at the end of the day, you have the passengers to make sure that they have a nice time, tell their friends, and come back again. And as for that authority, it's a style, it's an overall package that you bring to the table. I mean, you're very lucky because on my last ship I had 120 crew members below me and officers, various departments, various ranks, and I've had the pleasure of working with them before, and they're happy to work with me, and obviously we have to look out for each other and treat each other with respect.
So how do you think they would describe your style of leadership?
Well, I lead from the front. I always have done. I lead by example, and obviously I have a lot of experience over the 35-year career that I've had with Carnival UK as it is now. But I had another career with a steam packet before that, and really isn't a day goes by where I don't use something that I learned at the steam packet in the career that I've had.
So then in terms of what you are likely to have to face when you're if assuming you get elected to LegCo, where do you see the big issues? Where do you see those issues lying at the moment?
Well, cost of living is a big issue. Obviously the health is a big issue. Getting on and off the island is a big issue to people, and the leisure industry is an issue for people in the Isle of Man. Affording to go out, where to go, and how to spend any surplus money they have left over.
And do you think, because of your experience, particularly obviously in relation to the Isle of Man steam packet, but I guess also with the airlines, that you'll be able to bring something more to the table, because there'll be plenty of people on the Isle of Man that won't be able to understand why the services, both air and sea services, can't be better than they are.
Yeah, well, I have an understanding of the rules and regulations, and why things perhaps don't happen that should happen, but perhaps the airline people, the steam packet people, should be a little bit more explanative in the reasoning behind why boats don't sail or planes don't go. We seem to sort of keep the information to ourselves, and it's very easy for me when I understand the why something may not have sailed, but because the crew aren't trained in that ship, or they need to have additional drills and what have you if they've not been on it for a while. Therefore you can't just transfer the crew from one ship to another very quickly, because there are rules and regulations behind it, and that should be explained a little bit better perhaps. And
do you think that government, and I suppose Tynwald as well, I mean obviously government has a team of PR people that assist in terms of getting messages over, Tynwald less so. I mean, but perhaps it's that, I mean, there is an information officer, education officer, I think, in Tynwald, but do you think that the public are made as aware of what's going on in Tynwald as perhaps they should be, and do you think government is as good as it could be in terms of communication?
Well, I think they could both do better, yes, without a doubt. Giving people information that they can understand, is paramount.
So I suppose then, imagine there's some legislation in relation to environmental standards for ships. How do you go? What are the bits of that legislation that you need to be able to explain to the public? And what are the bits that are so operational that you think, no, that they don't need to know?
Environmentally, I mean, there's emissions, there's the different types of fuel you use, there's bilge water processing, sewage discharge, sewage treatment, making of fresh water, disposing of wastewater, etc., food waste. There are many things in shipping, but they're the same for the environmental standards on the Isle of Man. I'm a big believer in renewable energies, but at the right cost and affordability to the Isle of Man, and like incinerators, the sewage treatment on the island, things like that. I know all about how they operate, how they function, power stations, things like that. I know a ship is basically a floating power station. In fact, a ship is, I when I do lectures on the ship and lectures at home here in the Isle of Man at the Institute of Marine Engineers, I always explain a ship as a floating Isle of Man, because we have many of the same sort of assets as the Isle of Man. We have shops, gymnasiums, theatres, bars, restaurants, food processing, food waste, function rooms, etc., etc. All the facilities, hospitals, doctors, nurses. We have all these things on the ship. So I'm very familiar with how things run and the departments that run them, and chairing meetings, and working as a team, collectively, and responsibly and efficiently, and making people, everybody is accountable for what they do on a ship.
And I suppose we often, some people anyway, lament the fact that the Isle of Man is distant from areas of expertise, particularly in relation to medical care. But we're only an 80-mile trip away from Liverpool. I guess on your ships in previous times, you could have been thousands of miles away, and you have to make it work, I guess.
Well, you're totally self-sufficient, yeah, and you have to make it work. And I'm used to very challenging times on board, and analytical thinking, strategic planning are a fundamental part of the role.
So you've assume then you've been elected to Legislative Council, and you are being wooed by departments. Have you got any particular preference? Do you think it's helpful to have people who know about, in your case, marine engineering, to be
it's not just
in
marine
the infrastructure
engineering.
department?
I know about all sorts of engineering and electrical things. As for getting elected, there should be a cross-section of society and a cross-section of skills available in government to give it a finer balance. And I think that I bring a better balance to government and to the understanding of the subjects that I can bring to the table.
And do you think your skill sets, I suppose, trying to think of the way of asking the question, that they are transferable? So effectively, what you've learned and what you know is specific to certain circumstances, but can you take what you know and how you've been trained and effectively adapt that to different
it's applicable ashore as it is at sea. Let's just take the power station. The power station is basically the same as it would be on a ship. You have engines, gas turbines that generate electricity. They have switchboards, sub-switchboards, transformers, etc. It's just the same, except it doesn't float. Yeah, so my skill set is as good as anyone else ashore.
But I suppose, a good example, Home Affairs tends to produce quite a bit of legislation. It will have some fairly complex areas in relation to a whole range of things, not least law and order, immigration, things like this. How do you use the skills that you've gained to assess things in areas that you're perhaps less, you've had less experience of? How do you do that?
Well, you have to learn to adapt and what have you, but the circumstances you just mentioned there, obviously security on a ship is high profile, and in certain parts of the world, we take an armed guard on. We operate at different levels of security. I'm used to and familiar with the ISPS code for port security, etc., etc. So I'm fairly sure that I have the skill set already, and I can adapt to whatever comes my way.
So we know, initially there were 16 candidates. It's now down to 15 candidates. I suppose the opportunity now arises for you to explain, why, if a member of the House of Keys is looking down that fairly lengthy list of potential LegCo members, why would they specifically pick on Andrew Jones as opposed to any of the others? And I'm not asking you to rubbish any of those. I'm just asking what are the main things?
Well, I'm honest, hardworking. I have integrity. I'm used to dealing with complex situations in real time. I'm full of common sense. I believe in a Manx way of life. I'm highly educated, highly trained, highly skilled in many different areas, not just engineering, electrical systems. I'm trained in crisis management, major incident response, mass casualty situations, environmental management, risk management, project management, firefighting, damage control, security. I'm used to working analytically to solve problems and dealing with complex situations in real time as they happen. I'm used to working in a strategic planning framework. We're planning for, if the lifespan of the ship is 30 years, then we're planning 30 years ahead. Obviously, it's a fluid program because it does change. Environmentally, I fully understand, as I've mentioned, emission controls, food waste, waste separation, sewage treatment, incineration systems, refrigeration controls, swimming pools, water production, power saving, power generation systems. In personnel management, I'm experienced in running large groups of multi-skilled people, ensuring hard standards are maintained and within budget, and making personnel accountable for all their actions. I'm used to running, billion-dollar assets with multi-million-pound budgets, and being held accountable for coming in on budget, and ensuring that the ship operates efficiently and within a legal and legislative framework. I'm used to being a team player in a global business. I'm used to chairing meetings on my own department and with all other departments involved in running a very large cruise ship, which I've always referred to as a floating Isle of Man, as I've mentioned. I'm almost 62 years of age. I have lots of experience in life and family life. I also have to say that there's no one else in government with my experience or knowledge in engineering and environmental matters, in shipping, management, and everything else I've already discussed and what have you with you. And I feel I'm one of the 4 best candidates to take the Isle of Man forward.
And one of the things you've mentioned, and I think you're now, I think you're the 12th candidate of the 14 who've responded to me so far. I think you're the first that's mentioned the Manx way of life. Why is that important?
Well, it is important. I've grown up in an environment that's completely different from anywhere else in the world, and we need to cherish that and hang on to it.
And do you think we do enough of that?
Well, no, I don't. I think we don't beat the drum hard enough and remind people what a great place it is to live here, and we can do better, and that's why I've thrown my hat in the ring, and I'm determined to get through.
And I guess, having heard all the list of things that you are knowledgeable on, what would happen if perhaps you aren't successful? Would you still be open for offers if somebody, a minister's been listening to this and thinking, actually, that fella, he'd be really useful, maybe I could pick his brains on a few things? Would you still be open for those sorts of conversations?
Well, most definitely. In fact, I've had a number of conversations with people in government already. But I've actually spoken to another person that's standing, and we certainly agree on a number of issues, and I've said to him, if he wins and I don't, I'll be happy to support some of his initiatives, and if I win and he doesn't, I'm happy to work with him and take some of his initiatives forward, but he'll get all the credit for it because I think they're great ideas. But he also thinks I've got great ideas and I'm a good candidate as well, so I'm here to help if I can.
And politicians generally aren't that good at giving the people with the ideas the credit for their ideas, are they?
Well, it's not my idea. Credit where credit's due. And if he's willing to work with me, I'm willing to work with him. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming into the studio and recording that interview with me.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
That was retired engineer Andrew Jones. While you don't have a vote, I hope you're finding it interesting listening to those who wish to represent us all in Tynwald. I'm sure your MHKs would be interested in hearing who you'd favour in the LegCo vote, even though you don't get to vote. So we've heard from some very informed and experienced candidates. who will be chosen by the Keys next week? Let me know your thoughts on the programme by contacting Phil Gorn at manxradio.com and get in touch if you have any ideas for future shows. Don't forget this programme is available as a podcast on Manx Radio's website. I'm Phil Gorn, go to Myos and Geisach Rum. Thanks for listening.